Rich Cimini has been covering the Jets for a long time. He's with ESPN now, ESPN Jets reporter. Rich Cimini, who was actually in Albany yesterday, and he joins us here on Big Board Sports. I think the Jets have done a lot of good things here, and what they did over the weekend to move up to number 3 made a lot of sense to me. And Rich Cimini joins us here on Big Board Sports, 104.5 The Team, ESPN Radio. Rich, good morning. Roger Weiland, Chris Honorado, thanks for a few minutes.
Yeah, thanks for having me this morning, guys.
So what was your trip to Albany all about yesterday?
Well, I went up there to follow around Jets or former Jets linebacker Demario Davis, who's now with the Saints. He was, he's part of that group of NFL players. They call themselves the Players Coalition. They're just lobbying lawmakers across the Northeast to try to enact some change, social reform. In this particular case, it was criminal justice reform. So it was kind of cool. It was my first time in the Capitol, and I got to walk around the halls and some of the back rooms. I had some pretty good access as they met with some legislative folks to try to lobby for this bill.
Well, I'm hope you had a nice little trip to Albany.
It didn't snow.
It didn't snow, right? And
it's snowing now on Long Island.
I know. But, we're well aware, and we actually are not getting hammered today with a snowstorm, and you are. And we just had Paul Schwartz on from the New York Post talking about the snowstorm that you are in the midst of. Rich, what do you think of the weekend trade by the Jets to move up to number 3 to position themselves to get one of the quarterbacks?
Well, I mean, as I wrote on the day, I've actually been writing it all off season. They had really 2 plans going into this off season, and one of the plans was going to cost them a ransom of money, which was the Kirk Cousins plan. We all know how that turned out. And their other plan was to get one of these young quarterbacks, and I think they realized that the best way to do that would be to trade up. So instead of giving the $90 million to Kirk Cousins, they're basically giving the equivalent in draft pick compensation for the Colts to move up. So they're saving their money, but it's costing them a ton of picks. But I thought they had to do it. I mean, you can't sit at 6 and keep your fingers crossed that one of these quarterbacks is going to fall to you. They had to get a quarterback this offseason, a permanent solution, because Josh McCown and Teddy Bridgewater are Band-Aids. They're on 1-year contracts. Next year's draft, you don't know what's in next year's draft. So they had to make that move. They gave up a lot, but I felt it was a worthwhile gamble.
How about this? I wrote this morning that I thought that they now position themselves quite nicely at quarterback, because you have McCown, who did a good job for you last year, and he's reliable, veteran guy. You got Bridgewater, who, I don't know, Rich, he kind of is a wild card. I mean, he had some good years. And then you're going to go get what you hope to be as your future quarterback. So I kind of like how the layout is, at least on paper, at the quarterback position right now for the Jets.
Yeah, and I do too. And I know a lot of Jet fans are scratching their heads trying to figure out why they signed Josh back and then brought in Teddy. But I kind of like it. I think it's the ultimate hedging your bet. They have the older guy in Josh, who, like you said, Roger, I mean, he had a good year last year, but Josh is erratic. Throughout his career, he's never really had 2 good years in a row, and he's never played a full season either. So I think you needed a quality backup, and so they signed Teddy, and you said the right words. He's a wild card. You don't know if he'll be back off that knee injury, and if he is, and he's as good as he was a couple of years ago, then he can push or take over the starting job from Josh. But then you need the permanent solution, the long-term solution, and that's what they'll get out of the draft.
ESPN's Rich Cimini with us here on Big Board Sports, 104.5 The Team, ESPN Radio. You can check him out on Twitter, at Rich Cimini. Stay up to date on all the Jets news that way. And Rich, one thing I caught that you had tweeted out yesterday was the link to the piece on ESPN.com about what quarterbacks may go where and what teams may try to move up or down. And at number 3, you wrote, Josh Allen, Sam Darnold, and Josh Rosen fit the profile preferred by GM Mike McCagnon. Big body, big arm, prototypical pocket passer. Baker Mayfield would be an outside-the-box choice for the GM. So in moving up to 3, do you believe there was one specific quarterback the Jets were targeting?
No, I don't think. I mean, they have a priority list. I mean, there's no doubt about that. They have a draft board, and the three guys, 1, 2, and 3, and 4 have to. They have to prioritize them. But I'm sure they have a guy there that said, "Boy, we'd love for this guy to fall to 3." And I was basing that on just some conversations from people around the league and just studying what Mike Maccagnan's done with his quarterbacks. And, I love Mayfield. I think Mayfield would be a good fit for the Jets. I've written that before. I've said it before. I just don't know. I mean, he's 6 feet tall. And if you go back through the history, it would be so unconventional. I think the last quarterback who was 6 feet who got drafted in the first round was Michael Vick. And you go back to 2001. Russell Wilson is basically 5'11", but he was a third-round pick. So it would be really an outlier. I wouldn't rule it out, but I just think the other 3 guys probably fit more the prototype that they're looking for.
Rich, in general, is this a Jets team that is on the right track now, and still, I think, more money to spend to get good players into this franchise and to start making some headway with in terms of wins and losses?
Yeah, I mean, they're on the right track. They've been on the right track for a year. When last year they decided to tear it down and rebuild it. I think what you're seeing through this free agency, except for Josh, who's going to be 39, they haven't signed a free agent who's over 30 years old. So they've been really focusing on younger players, guys in their mid to late 20s. Tremaine Johnson, the big cornerback, signing's 28. So you should get 2 or 3 good years out of him. So they've been really focused on staying young. They have not the one contract that is just kind of mind-boggling is the Tremaine Johnson contract. He got $34 million guaranteed. It's one of the biggest in history for the Jets. That's the one big splurge they've done. Other than that, they're mostly signing younger guys to reasonable contracts. Are they a better team than they were last year? A little bit. I mean, they still don't have any playmakers on offense, and they lost their tight end, Safaria Jenkins, so they still got a ways to go.
Isaiah Crowell, they added at running back. Rich, I know it's out there that Alan Hearns is expected to visit the Jets today. So you had the Terrell Pryor visited the Jets yesterday. Do you view either of those guys as upgrades at the wide receiver position?
Not really, because, I mean, we're into the second wave of free agency now, and so the guys who are still out there are except for Ndamukong Suh, who's probably going to get a big contract. Everyone else is going to get a 1-year deal. Pryor is basically a Robbie Anderson kind of guy. I think their interest in receivers could be connected to concern about Robbie Anderson. Mm-hmm. I think most people recognize that he's had some concerning off-the-field issues, 2 arrests in the last year. And I think the Jets have definite concerns about his long-term future with the team. So if they were to sign a Pryor or say an Alan Hearns, who will come in later this week if he gets out of the Cowboys facility, he's there today. Then yeah, I think Robbie could be in a bit of trouble.
How about the head coach and the GM? Do you view these two as Bowles and Maccagnan as two that'll be there for a little while, or is this a key year for both those guys?
Well, both guys got 2-year contract extensions after the season, so they're under contract for 3 more years. But as we know in the NFL, that doesn't, there isn't really such thing as like total security. I think these guys think they'll be around for a while. They're acting like they're going to be around for a while, especially with this quarterback trade. With moving up for a quarterback, that shows you they're thinking long term. They just can't. They just got to show some improvement. I mean, they've gone 5-11 the last 2 years, and last year actually they overachieved, believe it or not. But you can't go 5-11 again. You can't go 6-10. That's just not going to cut it in a market like New York. So they got to show some significant improvement, progress. That's the word they keep using. Now if they go 6-10 or 7-9, but the quarterback that they draft is playing really well towards the end of the season, then to me that's a win. So that's progress. So everything's relative, but these guys, they gotta get this thing accelerated a little bit.
Rich, as you can imagine, here in Albany, not too far away from Syracuse, we've been all over the Orange in their run. Be honest with us now. How far did you have this team going in your bracket?
Well, first of all, I was surprised they got in. So, second, I did have them beating TCU in the first round. I had that. I didn't have them beating. I'm gonna be perfectly honest. As much as I bleed Orange, I didn't have them beating Michigan State in my bracket. So, of course, now the bracket's blown up, and so I'm rooting for the Orange. It's a great run. I mean, they're not that great a team, really, when you look at them, but they play really good defense. They play hard. They have a good coach who knows how to win in the tournament. So anything's possible.
Hey, listen, we appreciate a few minutes, Rich. Always great work, and we've enjoyed your work for many, many years. And thanks for a few minutes here on Big Board Sports in Albany.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.